But there are few things which are related to these diseases which are specifically very, very important from the, all right. One, the causative agent, or so I'll just write the agent that the symptoms of the diseases are very, very important. These two things are very, very important. And then after that, prevention and cure. Prevention and cure. These three aspects of any disease will be very, very important for the examination in your prelims paper. So let's have a discussion on this now. The first one is malaria versus protozoa. Is this correct? This is absolutely correct. Malaria is caused by a protozoa. There is a kind of plasmodium which causes malaria. So this is perfectly correct. Second one is typhoid versus virus. Is this a viral disease? This is not. This is wrong. Typhoid is a bacterial disease, a bacteria called as Salmonella typhi. Salmonella typhi. This causes typhoid. So that's why this is wrong. This pairing is wrong. The third one is ringworm versus fungi. This is correct. Ringworm is a fungal disease, a kind of a skin disease which happens because of fungus. So this is definitely correct. So that's why these out of these there are two pairs only which have been marked correctly. Now this is a very unique way of asking the question, whether instead of asking whether 1 and 3 are matched correctly or 1, 2 and 3 are matched correctly, here the question says only one pair is marked correctly, or two pairs, or all the three pairs are matched correctly. This is a pattern that for the first time we saw in the 2022 paper. If you look at the 2022 prelims paper, you'll see that there are some questions which have been asked in this particular format. So that's why this is something which is very, very important to understand, that this is a new way in which they have started asking questions for the first time. So that's why the correct answer here will be 2 and 3 only, which is B. Unfortunately, there is a mistake in the numbering here, but this is the second option. All right, let's look at question number 2. Polyethylene terephthalate and polyurethane and then polyamides are often in the news. They are examples of which of the following? So we have made the question a little easier for you by asking which of the following. Otherwise, this question could have been made very difficult if we wanted. All right, so let's take your answers. I'm sure that most of you will be able to mark the correct answer. All right, wonderful. 78% of you have marked the correct answer. That's wonderful to see. So when we talk about all these three are examples of different kinds of polymers or different kinds of plastics. If you look at the figure given on the screen behind me, you'll see that these are the three different kinds of plastics that we often use. So for example, the first one, that is polyethylene terephthalate. This is something which you also call as PET. In short form, we also call it as PET. So you might have used PET bottles as it has been shown in the figure as well. So this is basically what PET is. So it is a kind of a polymer, it is a kind of a plastic. So this is correct. Second one, polyurethane. So this is again something which is a kind of a plastic or a kind of a polymer. So if you have used this, you might see that this kind of a scrubber, or even let's say in making the foam mattresses. Even in the mattresses, we see that this is something that can be used. Even in the carpets, even in making carpets, this is something, this is a kind of polymer that can be used there as well. So we have seen that it is used in all these cases. And then you have the polyamides. Polyamides can be used in various kinds of fibers. For example, in wool or in silk or even in nylon. We see that in all these cases, they can be taken as examples of polyamides. So that's why in all these cases, just remember that these are all, that's why going back, these are all what? These are all examples of synthetic fibers, right? They're all examples of synthetic fibers. So that's why the correct answer here will be A. So just remember, so what we are saying is this, that these are all examples of polymers, right? So what do we mean by polymers? Polymers are the materials or the compounds that you get from something called as monomers. So first and foremost, what do we mean by a monomer? So what is mono? Mono signifies what? One, right? The number one signifies mono. And what is mer? The meaning of mer is any part. So any material, any compound which is made of just one part will be called as a monomer. And then when there are many units of these monomers that come together and make a material, then in that case it will be called as a polymer. So in all these cases, you can say that in one way or the other, these are polymers which are made of all these monomers. All right. So in all these cases, these are examples of plastics which can be used as synthetic fibers. Let's move on. The next question. Question number 3, you have isotopes and their medical usage. Carbon 14 versus detection of ulcers. Iodine 131, treatment of hyperthyroidism, and then cobalt 60, treatment of cancer. How many pairs are correctly matched is what has been asked of you. So I'm launching the poll for you. Could be a little difficult if you have not heard of these, but let's take the answers and then we'll have a discussion on it, because the second and the third statements are little easier maybe, and first is where probably a lot of you could be confused. So let's discuss all of them one by one. So first and foremost, when it comes to carbon 14, what is the most important use of carbon 14? Where do we use carbon 14 the most? What is the application? Any idea? Anyone who could tell me quickly? What is that one application for which we use carbon 14? Yes, Sudhanshu, correct. It's for carbon dating. So carbon dating is the most important. It's the most important use when it comes to carbon 14. But can it be used in the detection of ulcers? The answer actually is yes, that it can be used in the detection of ulcers. Basically, the bacteria that causes ulcers, it can be used in the detection of that particular bacteria. All right, so that's why it can actually be used in the detection of ulcers. Then iodine 131 for the treatment of hyperthyroidism. This is also correct. This is done, and we see that especially any, or rather any thyroid related issue, we see that iodine 131 can be used there. Also, you would see that anything related to thyroid, iodine is seen as one of the agents that can cure it, right? One of the agents that can help in getting rid of anything related to thyroids. So that should also give you a hint that iodine 131 could be used there. And then you have cobalt 60 in the treatment of cancer. This is also correct. So cobalt 60 can be used in the treatment of cancer. This is also correct. So that's why all these three have been actually marked correctly. All these three have been marked correctly. These all are possible with the help of these. And what are these? All these are radioisotopes, right? All these are radioisotopes. They are all radioactive material, and all of them have their own medical usage. All right, let's move on. Next question. Which of the following is an endothermic reaction? All right, so we are going back to the classes, endothermic and exothermic reactions. So let's take your answers, and this time I'm very sure that most of you will give the correct answer. All right, so please mark your answers, and then after that we shall have a discussion on this particular question. Have given the correct answer. Let's begin with the discussion first. What do we mean by endothermic and exothermic reaction? So exo and endo. First of all, let's try to break down the words. All right. So when we say exothermic and when we say endothermic, exothermic and endothermic. So when we say exo, what is exo? Something which is outside, right? Something that is out or outside. And endo is something which is inside or in. What is therm? Therm is a word associated with heat. So what does it mean? So reaction in which, so that's why if you see, the reaction that releases the energy from the system in the form of heat is called as exothermic, and a reaction that system absorbs, in which system absorbs energy, is called as endothermic. So that's why endo and exo, meaning that one is absorbing the heat inside, that's why endo, and one is giving the heat outside, right? So that's why exo. So that's why exothermic reactions are where the heat is released outside, and endothermic reactions are where the heat is absorbed inside. Let's go back to the question and the four options given to us. First, burning of a natural gas in the presence of air. Burning of natural gas will give a lot of heat out. So hence it is an exothermic reaction. So A is wrong, sorry. That's why A is an exothermic reaction. A is an exothermic reaction. Then conversion of glucose to carbon dioxide during respiration. Now, in case of respiration, also heat is actually released. Energy is released out. So this also will be called as exothermic. Then decomposition of vegetable waste into compost. Now, in this case, also the energy actually is released outside. So even this will be called as exothermic. This will also become exothermic. So we are left with anyway just one option, that is melting of ice. So in case of melting of ice, it needs extra heat because you need to increase the temperature, then only the ice would melt, right? So if you increase the temperature, you are supplying the heat from outside, correct? You are supplying the heat from outside, and that is why we'll say that this is an endothermic reaction, because the heat is being absorbed, the heat is being provided from outside, so that the temperature of this ice can increase and it can melt into liquid water, correct? So that's why this will be called as what? This will be called as an endothermic reaction. So that's why the correct answer here for question number 4 will be D. Moving on, question number 5. Consider the following statements regarding plastics. Thermoplastics deform easily on heating, while thermosetting plastics don't deform on heating. Bakelite, a form of plastic, makes for good electrical switches due to excellent conduction of electricity. I'm launching the poll. Please mark your answers. All right, please mark your answers. So 29% of you have marked the correct answer. Let's have a discussion on this. So first is thermoplastics deform easily on heating, while thermosetting plastics don't deform on heating. So thermoplastics, all right, thermoplastics, and then you have thermosets or thermosetting plastics. Now in case of thermoplastics, we see that typically they have low melting point, so they would melt. So the basic difference between a thermoplastic and a thermosetting plastic or a thermoset would be that thermoset would burn on heating, all right? When raised to a high temperature, it would burn, whereas a thermoplastic will start to melt, all right? It will start to melt, and that's why it will have a lower melting point as compared to a thermosetting plastic. So they deform easily, this is correct, on heating, while thermosetting plastic don't deform easily on heating. Better would have been if we would have written deform easily on heating. That is true, because they would not deform, but rather they would start to burn, all right? Thermosetting plastics will start to burn and they would not melt. So that's the basic difference. So that's why we can mark this as correct. Second one is bakelite, a form of a plastic, makes for good electrical switches due to excellent conduction of electricity. If something is conducting electricity, can it be used in the switches? Only if you are making the switch for your enemy, because then because of conduction they would get the electric shock. So that's why conduction, no, wrong. And what is bakelite? Bakelite basically is also a kind of a thermosetting plastic, right? It is also a kind of a thermosetting plastic. So conduction, I mean, if something is conducting, you can't use it as a switch, because as soon as you touch it, you will have get the electric shock. So that's why never try that. So that's the correct answer here will be A, that is one only. So this is what we see, that generally in case of a thermoplastic, it can melt, all right? It will melt, and it is generally seen to be recyclable. Whereas in case of a thermosetting plastic, we see that it will burn in at high temperatures, and largely they are non-recyclable. So that's the basic difference between a thermoplastic versus a thermosetting plastic. Then after that, question number 6. Question number 6 says, consider the following statements with reference to coal tar, a byproduct of coal. It is tough, odorless, and black solid substance. 2, it is used in manufacturing of synthetic dyes, drugs, explosives, and perfumes. So I'm launching the poll for you. Please mark your answers. It is a tough, odorless, and black solid substance. Is it a solid substance? It is not a solid substance. It is a kind of a semi-liquid substance. It is liquid with high viscosity, high thickness, but it is liquid, right? Coal tar, we are talking about the tar. So tar is not solid, tar is a liquid substance. So that's why 1 is wrong. Second is, it is used in the manufacture of synthetic dyes, drugs, explosives, and perfumes. Yes, this is true. It is used in all of these. That we do produce dyes out of this, and there are some health implications also of it, which is something that is also discussed very often in the news also. Then after that, in making the drugs also, we see that there are some medicines where coal tar could be used. So we have seen that coal tar is used in some cases. Then in making explosives and also in perfumes. In perfumes, basically it is mixed so that it can make the perfume last a little longer. So that's the basic idea behind why it is used in perfumes as well. So that's why we see that in all these cases, we can use coal tar. So that's why 2 is correct. So correct answer here will be B. That is 2 only. All right. So this is how coal tar looks like. So that's why you can't say that it is solid. It is a liquid substance, a liquid byproduct of coal. All right. So next question, question number 7. Which of the following enzymes is responsible for conversion of starch to sugar? All right. Starch to sugar: pepsin, lipase, amylase, and lactase. These are the 4 given to you. Launching the poll. Please mark your answers. Which of the following enzymes is responsible for conversion of starch to sugar? So first is pepsin. Pepsin is used for what? For the digestion of proteins. Right? It will be used for the digestion of proteins. When it comes to lipase, lipase is used for the digestion of fats. Amylase is the one which is used for the conversion of starch to sugar. All right, so this is correct, that conversion of starch to sugar. So in a manner, you can say that it is for carbohydrates. And then after that, we have lactase. Lactase is found in some of the sugar containing material where this sugar will be broken down into simpler sugars. So this is basically what will happen. So it will help in the digestion of lactose, which is also found in milk and some of the other dairy products as well. So digestion of lactose can be done with the help of lactase. So correct answer here will be amylase. So starch to sugar, starch being one of the carbohydrates, starch to sugar can happen with the help of amylase. Apart from that, we also have maltase, for example. In case of maltase also this happens, that even if one of the options said maltase, that also could have been more or less correct. So this is how we look at all these enzymes. Question number 8. Now this is a very, very simple question. Which of the following statements consider the following statements with reference to mitochondria. Mitochondria have their own DNA and ribosomes and can make their own proteins. Second, they are called powerhouse of the cell due to their role in release of energy in the form of ATP. Please mark the correct answer. I'm sure that this answer will be given by majority of you. Mitochondria have their own DNA and ribosomes and can make their own protein. Is this correct? This is absolutely correct. See, normally what we see is that DNA is something that is found in the nucleus of any cell. But apart from nucleus, there are two other organelles in the cell also where we can find DNA. One of them is mitochondria. So which are the organelles which have their own DNA? One is nucleus, one is mitochondria, and then there is one organelle which is found in the plants, and these are plastids. So in plastids also, DNA can be found. The only difference is the nucleus contains DNA which is very specific to an organism, whereas when it comes to mitochondrial DNA or the plastid DNA, these are DNA which are not only specific to one individual but rather specific to the entire species, meaning that the entire human species will have the same mitochondrial DNA, whereas the nuclear DNA will be different in each one of us. So that's the basic difference between the nucleus DNA and the mitochondrial DNA. But mitochondria will have its own DNA, and even plastids found in the plant cells, they also have their own DNA, and they also have the ribosomes, and that's why they can make their own proteins. So that's why this is correct. They are called as powerhouse of the cell due to their role in release of energy in the form of ATP. This is also perfectly correct. Mitochondria, and I'm very sure that you remember that mitochondria is called as the powerhouse of the cell. Now, why do we call it as a powerhouse? The main reason is that it provides energy to the entire cell. It becomes the main source of energy for the entire cell. So whatever work has to be done by the entire cell, whatever kind of work any organelle or any part of the cell has to do, for that they need this energy, and this energy will be provided by mitochondria, and that's why mitochondria has been named as the powerhouse of the cell. So that's why both of these statements given here are correct. So the correct answer here will be C. Moving on, question number 9. Consider the following statements. Convex lenses diverge a straight beam of light after passing through it. Concave lenses are used in the treatment of myopia. All right, so two statements given here. Please mark. I'm launching the poll for you. Please mark your correct answer. So this is how you see a convex lens versus a concave lens. So as you can see that convex lens is doing what? Convex lens is focusing all the rays to one single point. So convex lenses are basically bulged out at the center, right? They're bulged out at the center. So what happens is that they would converge all the rays of light into one single point, and that's why they are converging lenses. They are also called as convergent lenses. They are called as convergent lenses, whereas in case of concave lens, they are also called as divergent lenses. They are called as divergent lenses. So coming back to the options given here, the first one, convex lenses diverge. Do they diverge? No, they converge. So that's why one is wrong. Second one says concave lenses are used in the treatment of myopia. Now this is basically correct, because what happens in case of myopia is that the image is basically formed in front of the eye, in front of the retina. So what we need to do is we need to diverge this ray. We need to diverge this ray, and for diverging this ray we need a lens here. So we'll place a divergent lens here. A divergent lens will be placed here, so that now this, not here, a divergent lens, right? So if this is your eye, this is where the convergence was happening, then in that case we would use a divergent lens here. All right, so that these rays now will be deflected towards the eye. This is what will happen. So this is what we do with the help of concave lenses. So that's why the correct answer will be 2 only. That 2 is correct, 1 is not correct, 1 is wrong. So this is about question number 9. So this is convergent. Understand convex lens and concave lens, how they converge or diverge the rays of light that come towards them. Moving on, the next question, question number 10, the last question of the day. Consider the following statements about magnetic resonance imaging or MRI. So here you have to select the incorrect answer. Just remember this. MRI uses ionizing radiation to form pictures of the internal structure of the body. MRI can be used to detect all types of cancers. MRI is more expensive than X-ray imaging or CT scanning. All right, so these are the statements given. So I'm launching the poll. You have to mark the one which is incorrect. Please remember this. You have to mark the one which is incorrect. When it comes to MRI, it says that it uses ionizing radiation. See, ionizing radiations are the ones which have high energy. So the high energy ones are called as ionizing radiation. So these are basically X-rays and gamma rays. X-rays and gamma rays, these are called as ionizing radiation. Whereas when it comes to the non-ionizing radiation, so another one would be non-ionizing. So in case of non-ionizing radiation, we see that the UV rays or the visible light, the infrared, etc., they all will be called as non-ionizing. So in case of MRI, for the imaging, we do not use ionizing, we use the non-ionizing radiation. All right, we use the non-ionizing radiation. So that's why this is correct. Sorry, this is wrong. It uses non-ionizing radiation. Second one is MRI can be used to detect all kinds of cancers. See, whenever you have all, this is a very extreme word. So whenever you have an extreme word, more or less you can understand that this will be a wrong statement, and this is the case here also, that this is a wrong statement. Not all kinds of cancers, some cancers can be detected, especially the ones which are related to the spinal cord, the brain, etc. In these kind of cases, MRI is more useful. In other cases, it may not be that useful. So that's why it cannot detect all the types of cancers. Only few of them can be detected with the help of MRI. So that's why all becomes wrong. Then MRI is more expensive than X-ray imaging or CT scanning. This is correct. X-rays normally will cost you somewhere around 200 to 500-600 maybe. CT scanning, on the other hand, maybe 2,000 to 3,000-4,000 maximum. MRI scan can go up to 10,000. So MRI scanning is a lot more expensive. So that's why this is correct. So you have been asked to mark the ones which are incorrect. So 1 and 2 are incorrect. So that's why the correct answer here will be 1 and 2. So this is how the MRI scan machine looks like. And in this case, what we see is that non-ionizing radiations are used. Please remember that. All right, so with this, we come to the end of the session. I hope that this session helps you in understanding some of the topics and also picking up the topics which can become important for your examination. With this, I'll take your leave. Thank you very much and good night.